Most people have a pretty good idea about what their credit is, but many, millions, actually have no credit file, no credit score. And so then how do they buy a home, and how do they go about making purchases and borrowing money for things that they want in life? We're going to talk about credit invisibility with Fannie Mae CEO Priscilla Almodovar. Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about how you can buy a home if you don't have a credit score. Is that even possible?
Absolutely. So credit invisible is someone who hasn't interacted with the credit system. They either have no credit file or a thin credit file. So that impacts people who want to buy a home, and that could be people new to this country. It could be Black and Latinos, and young people, the millennials who want to drive and are driving this housing demand.
How big an issue is credit invisibility? How the credit invisibles? I've heard it's something like 50 million Americans. Is that sound like a right number to you?
Yeah.
And who is this?
Yeah, so if you think about, we have about 120 million households in this country. About a third are renters. About 44 million, 45 million. So they are, most of them are credit invisible if rent is their biggest payment and it hasn't been reported. So it's a big number. The good news that with technology, we're now able to see that consumer when we weren't able to before. So we started with landlords, and they started reporting on-time rental payments. And then at Fannie Mae, we started incorporating those rental payments into our underwriting systems. And if the consumer gives us their bank statements, we could see what looked like a rental payment. Now we're going even one step further. We're saying, gosh, it's not just your rent and credit. You know, historically, we've been relying on these blunt tools, credit scores. Now we could look at a consumer's cash flow. And I'll tell you, there's so much we can learn about a consumer based on their ins and outs.
All of this comes down to AI technology providing you the tools to be able to do this. So is that how you're able to see the rental payments and the cash flow underwriting?
Absolutely. So technology has allowed us, with the consumer's permission, if they give us their bank statements, we can teach our models to actually recognize what looks like a rental payment. What does it look for? It looks at, is it the same amount coming out of their accounts at the same time every month? We could see who it's going to. And there's false positives sometimes, but we can train a model to see what looks like a rental payment. The way we're doing now with cash flow underwriting, looking at other data sources, not just rent, because we have relied on these tools that are, the credit score is just one data point. And what technology is enabling lenders to do now is to look at the consumer more holistically.
How much traction has it gotten, the rental payments and the cash flow underwriting? What are you seeing in terms of, have you seen more people become credit visible now?
First, we started with landlords reporting on-time payments. According to our vendor, and I only have data with respect to Fannie Mae loans, today they say about 437,000 of our consumers now are in the pilot. Of those, a third who did not have a credit score went from 0 to 680, many of them, and that's prime. So so that's pretty amazing. And then those who had a credit score, about a third saw about a 40-point increase, which is meaningful. So absolutely. On cash flow underwriting, so cash flow underwriting is now us saying our underwriting system can now see and recognize a rental payment. We have seen over 6,000 consumers eligible for a mortgage who didn't have a credit score. By the way, 50% of those are minority. So it goes to show once again that this ability to look at a consumer more holistically is really leveling the playing field.
The evolution of AI and the ability to enable people to use online on-time rent payments and the cash flow underwriting is tremendous. But there's a lot of concern about AI, particularly when we're talking about people of color, in terms of inherent biases in that, discrimination that may exist. How do you make sure that that is not curtailing what you're trying to achieve and trying to make people have visible credit histories?
It's something that's on our mind, it's on everyone's mind. Fair lending is an issue, so it's for any regulated entity like a Fannie Mae and most banks, there's a law already out there about these biases. So when we think of how we use artificial intelligence to increase access to credit, we have ethical principles around that. Issues around transparency, accountability, knowing the data we're using, knowing the source of the data, making sure that we're understanding biases that are in the data. We're able to do this in a way that understands the risks of this technology, but also do it in a way that really opens up the credit box for a lot of people who've been underserved.
Thank you for being with us to talk about credit visibility and how to make it more visible to many people. Priscilla Almodovar, Fannie Mae CEO, joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.